Welcome to another edition of World Talks here on TVP World. I'm your host, Benjamin Lee, and please join me and my guests on this next interview. France is once again caught in a political turmoil following the collapse of Prime Minister François Bayrou's government after a crushing no-confidence vote. President Macron has swiftly appointed Defense Minister Sébastien Lecornu, his third prime minister in under a year, to navigate France's fractured parliament, looming budget crisis, and mounting public unrest. Joining us today on TVP World to analyze these developments and what they mean for Europe is Małgorzata Bonikowska, president of the Center for International Relations, expert on EU affairs. Hello and welcome to TVP World.
Hello, thank you for having me.
So, how critical is Bayrou's ousting when it comes to exposing the fragility of Macron's political mandate?
Well, France's situation is really quite complex as President Macron's party is quite weak right now, and his legacy it's the last term he can serve. 2027 will be this political end. So I think everything which is happening right now, it's absolutely crucial for Macron's future, for the possibility for the president to continue being in power. The opposition is obviously hoping that that will not be possible. So all these problems with the prime ministers and the governments created one after another. It's just because the opposition is quite strong and they just don't want any government under Macron's turn. They block everything and they will be creating more and more problems, whoever will be the prime minister of France right now.
Right, and we've seen France having changed to, probably 5 different prime ministers in just 2 years. Is there a signal of just general distrust in the government, or do you think it's purely have to do with the opposition party and not letting anything they want done go through?
It's basically the problem with the opposition because Macron did, as you remember, a very controversial maneuver during the parliamentary elections, when he decided to first of all he decided to have the elections earlier, which was severely criticized because he was having earlier quite good majority. I mean, he could really govern, while after the elections his party lost, and the opponents were created at the radical right and radical left side. And these two groups are blocking whatever the president is trying to do and whoever he wants to nominate. So the parliament is not stable because it's actually composed of 3 groups, and every of these 3 has a completely different political plan, political program. However, the opposition, the first and the second group, at least in one thing, are completely united. Radical right and radical left don't want Macron anymore. They don't want him to be a president. They hope to push him to the wall, to push him to that extent that he resigns finally before the 2027 term. And in the same time, obviously, they want to create more and more problems for him to govern. And in the presidential system of France, the president is the most important. However, he cannot really rule without the government. So whoever will be nominated as prime minister will have exactly the same issues, exactly the same problems. And in the same time, France is, generally speaking, in a huge crisis because of the situation of the country. It's a financial crisis, the deep reforms needed. So whoever will be a prime minister has to face this harsh reality. So there is not much space for maneuver for these gentlemen. And whoever Macron nominates, it will be a politician or a technocrat. There will be a problem of the budget, it will be a problem of reforms, and French society simply doesn't want this to happen, doesn't understand that, unfortunately, they have to sacrifice certain privilege that they were enjoying until today. And French people are so used to have them and so used to protest that the society supports the opposition, basically.
All right, now you brought up the economic issue, and the most recent number put France's debt to GDP ratio at 114%. That's the third highest in Europe. Now, do you think that there's any possibility to reverse that course without having to significantly cut spending? Like you mentioned, there seems to be stuck between a rock and a very hard place, as these numbers don't really look optimistic. But at the same time, the only way to lower it would to be cut some benefits, which people are very used to, and it's going to enlist a lot of pushback as well. There doesn't seem to be a winning situation or solution here.
Well, that's exactly what I said. I mean, the reality is that France is living beyond their capabilities, financial capabilities. It used to be a huge and important country, but now France has to reduce their social security spending, their benefits, and obviously, this is the only way to reduce the debts, to repair the budget. But if the society doesn't want it, and these protests you are now seeing showing us, it's just the beginning, because the society doesn't accept any plan of reforms. People simply don't want to give up these privileges, and in the same time, there is no other way the government can repair it. And the President Macron is highly unpopular. If I'm not wrong, it's 15% only of support for him. So it's very, very low number. It is also because the president was trying to do some reforms. So it's really a clash in between the reality, which is quite harsh for the French people, and the urgent necessity to repair the financial and economic situation of the country.
Right. You mentioned earlier that the radical left and right both don't want to see Macron's government success. Do you think that these people would come together to form a big enough bloc to actually block all the laws from passing or any reform from materializing? And in a sense, do you think that they will in some way have an impact in the next election coming?
Well, that's exactly what is happening. The opposition is able to outvote the prime minister, and Bayrou said, "You can unvote me. You can just put this government to the end, but you cannot unvote the reality." So the message was that it's not important the person who is a prime minister. It's important the reality that France has to go under reforms. The opposition doesn't want to acknowledge that. The opposition, the message, both radical right and radical left tell the French people is that it's all the fault of Macron. So Macron has to go. Whoever will be in power after will be better. The situation will be more stable. So at the moment, they don't tell the truth to the people. At the moment, they fight for power. The only objective they have is to put Macron out of power sooner, not without waiting until 2027, as soon as possible. And obviously, Marine Le Pen would be very happy to be able to replace Macron. So it's at the moment a very, very difficult situation for the president, because he's very much aware that his place of maneuver is quite limited. What can he do? He can replace for another time the prime minister, but the situation will repeat for sure. The opposition will block even the budget proposals, which are absolutely crucial, because the budget shows the spending and the cuts as well. So the opposition is it's easy for the opposition to block it. But on the other side, Macron cannot really call for another elections, because the situation in the parliament will be even worse, most likely after such elections, for him than it is today. And still, the parliament will not have a very clear leading group, any very clear majority. So it's really a very complicated political situation for France.
All right. So do you think that with a lot of support behind the opposition, they do have a concrete policy position or any sort of proposal that might alleviate the budget situation that was able to garner so much support?
Well, I don't think, not in this situation. If the opposition, and I'm stressing, these two groups are a complete opponents as well. It's a radical left and radical right. As you can imagine, their programs are completely opposite. Despite this fact, both these groups want Macron to go. So this is the common position, which really doesn't create any place for any space for any compromise. They just simply don't accept Macron in power. So for Macron, he can propose the technical government based on not politicians, based on experts, just to handle more or less the situation. But even such proposal will be contested by the opposition. So, as I said, the maneuver for the president is really quite limited. In the same time, he tries to repair his image by quite active. Activity abroad. In foreign policy, Macron is quite active and quite successful, we can say. The same goes for European theater. But here we have another problem for the president. France, because of this internal situation, is weaker and weaker. So Macron's international position is also to be affected by this situation. So, as I said, really quite complicated, and really I don't see any clear way out of this situation for him.
Right, it does seem like he is in a bind here. What are some of the front-running parties right now if Macron was to lose power, and do they have any economic proposals?
Well, it's a choice in between lying to the people and creating a false image that the country is strong, that we are okay, and the reality, which I said, the only way of really putting things in order is going into deep budget reform, reducing spending, making important cuts in the social security system, in a lot of public spending. This was, by the way, the approach of Macron during pandemic, that the way, in what way France went out of this crisis through a huge public spending from the public money, from the budget. So this put the situation of the government into even a deeper crisis. So that's the only way. So I think whoever will be in power will face, in any case, this harsh reality. But as I said, now the opponents of Macron, they are not yet thinking about what they will do once they get power. First, the problem for them is to win, to get power. And for those who support these two radical opponent groups, it is a very interesting thinking. In France, people just say that, or think that President Macron just simply lied to them, or that Macron tried to play with the democratic system, because actually his party is not the most important one, and he is still a president. In the first turn of parliamentary elections, radical right and radical left got more votes. And despite this fact, they are not in power yet. Yet none of them became prime minister. So it's like, playing with democracy. And it's a very strong argument today not to support Macron, but to support these opposition groups.
Right, and perhaps this explanation to why there's so much unrest as well. Thank you so much for your input and insight. Really appreciate it. And thanks for being with us on TVP World.
Thanks a lot. Good night.
And thank you for tuning into this edition of World Talks. But for more news, update, and commentary, please stay tuned to TVP World.